Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim, my dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. If I were to ask you today, what is the key to success? Many would say hard work, some would say education, others would say connections and opportunities. And while these are important, they are merely the branches and the leaves. They are not the root. The root of all true success, the very foundation upon which every achievement is built, lies in a place many of us neglect. It lies in controlling the most powerful, yet often the most rebellious, part of our being, our own mind. The concept that the mind is the primary battlefield is not merely a philosophical idea. It is the lived reality of every human being striving for a better life. From the moment we wake to the moment we sleep, an endless stream of thoughts, judgments, fears, and desires flows through our consciousness. This internal dialogue is the unseen architect of our reality, shaping our perceptions, dictating our emotions, and ultimately determining our actions. To believe that success is first and foremost an external pursuit, a better job, a larger house, a more impressive title, is to misunderstand the fundamental order of creation. All action is born from intention, and all intention is born from a thought. Therefore, the quality of our life is, in a very real sense, dependent on the quality of our thoughts. The battlefield is not the boardroom or the marketplace. It is the silent, private space between our ears. This is where victories are first conceived, and where defeats are so often conceded before a single external blow is struck. Consider the profound wisdom in the Islamic tradition that reminds us of the constant presence of both divine inspiration and negative whispering. We are taught that Shaitan has no power over us except to suggest, to whisper, to paint things in a deceptive light. His entire strategy is fought on this very battlefield of the mind. He cannot force you to sin. He can only make sin appear attractive, necessary, or insignificant. He cannot make you despair. He can only present your situation as hopeless and your Lord as distant. His weapons are not swords and spears. They are doubt, fear, envy, and arrogance. When you recognize this, you understand that every negative impulse, every surge of panic, every voice that tells you you are not enough, is not a command you must obey. It is an invitation to a battle. It is a skirmish on this internal frontier. To ignore this battle, to be unaware that it is even being waged, is to leave the gates of your own city undefended, allowing any hostile thought to march in and take control. This is why the prophets and the righteous throughout history were not necessarily people who lived lives of ease and comfort. On the contrary, they faced immense external hardships, persecution, poverty, betrayal, and war. Yet their inner state remained one of profound peace, resilience, and unwavering purpose. Their success was not defined by their material circumstances, but by their victory on the internal battlefield. They mastered their responses. When faced with hatred, they responded with patience and a prayer for guidance. When faced with fear, their hearts found solace in the remembrance of the Almighty. They understood that external circumstances are temporary and fleeting, like weather patterns passing over a mountain. The mountain, their faith and their controlled mind remained steadfast. Their primary concern was not to change the world first, but to ensure their inner world was aligned with divine truth. The external reformation was merely a natural consequence of this internal victory. For us, in our daily lives, this battle manifests in countless ways. It is the voice that convinces you to hit the snooze button instead of praying Fajr, making sleep seem more valuable than connection with your Creator. It is the anxiety that paralyzes you from applying for a new job or starting a business, magnifying the risk and minimizing your own capabilities and God's provision. It is the resentment that simmers after a harsh word from a colleague, replaying the scene over and over, allowing someone else's behavior to poison your own heart for hours or days. It is the envy that creeps in when you see the blessings of others, blinding you to the countless blessings you yourself possess. In every one of these instances, the initial external event is minor: a missed alarm, a job description, a critical comment, a social media post. But the internal battle that follows the negotiation between your higher self and your lower self, between faith and fear, between gratitude and discontent, that is what truly defines the outcome. Victory in this battle, therefore, is not the absence of negative thoughts. That is an impossible standard for any human being. The whispers will come, the winds of doubt will blow. Victory lies in your response to them. It is the conscious, disciplined act of recognizing a negative thought for what it is, a mere suggestion, an illusion, a distraction, and choosing not to entertain it, not to build a narrative around it, and not to let it dictate your actions. It is the practice of immediately seeking refuge in Allah from the accursed Shaitan the moment you feel a sinful or despairing thought take root. This is not a passive act. It is an active declaration of war on the battlefield. It is you raising your standard and defending your territory. When the thought of "I can't" arises, you counter it with the remembrance that through Allah I can. When the thought of "I am alone" attacks, you reinforce your position with the certainty that Allah is with me. This is the essence of true spiritual jihad, the greater struggle against the self. It is a struggle that requires constant vigilance, a daily recommitment, and a profound connection with the divine. It requires filling the mind with the Quran so that its truths become the default setting of your consciousness. It involves surrounding yourself with righteous company, people whose own thoughts and conversations act as a fortress for your mind, not a breach in its walls. It means guarding your senses from the pollution of falsehood and heedlessness that is so pervasive in the world today. The mind that is constantly fed through the eyes and ears with nonsense and vice cannot possibly be a mind at peace. It becomes a chaotic, ungovernable space. Therefore, controlling the mind is a holistic endeavor. It is about what you consume, what you listen to, who you befriend, and most importantly, what you remember. When you win this internal battle, the external battles of life become manageable. Challenges become opportunities for growth. Setbacks become lessons. And success becomes not just a destination to be reached, but a state of being to be lived, rooted in the unshakable peace of a mind submitted to its Creator. The idea that our thoughts shape our reality is far more than a modern self-help mantra. It is a profound spiritual and psychological principle that finds deep resonance in the Islamic worldview. We often operate under the illusion that the external world is fixed and objective, and that we are merely passive observers reacting to it. The truth, however, is far more dynamic and participatory. Our mind is not a blank slate that impartially records events. It is an active interpreter, a meaning maker that constantly filters, colors, and constructs our experience of reality. Every sight, every sound, every event passes through the lens of our pre-existing thoughts, beliefs, and internal narratives. Two people can encounter the exact same situation, a critical comment from a boss, a traffic jam, a financial setback, and experience two entirely different realities based on the thoughts they choose to entertain. One whose mind is conditioned toward defensiveness and catastrophizing will experience stress, anger, and a sense of persecution. The other, whose mind is grounded in patience and a broader perspective, might experience it as a minor inconvenience or even an opportunity for self-reflection. The external event was identical, but the internal reality and thus the subsequent emotional and behavioral response was worlds apart. This process is not merely philosophical, it has a tangible neurological basis. The neural pathways in our brain strengthen with repetition. When we consistently travel down a road of negative thinking, worry, complaint, suspicion, that road becomes a superhighway. The brain, seeking efficiency, defaults to these well-worn paths. This is why a person prone to anxiety can so quickly spiral from a single worrisome thought into a full-blown panic attack. The neural circuitry for catastrophe is highly developed. Conversely, the pathways for gratitude, optimism, and trust can be similarly strengthened through conscious, repeated practice. This is the scientific underpinning of the prophetic tradition that encourages us to have good expectations of Allah. Having Hassan al-Dihan is not wishful thinking. It is the active, disciplined construction of a neural pathway that expects divine mercy, grace, and a positive resolution, even when external circumstances suggest otherwise. It is, quite literally, training your brain to perceive a different, higher reality behind the veil of the apparent world. The consequences of this are staggering. A mind dominated by thoughts of scarcity will see evidence of lack everywhere, fostering envy and stinginess. A mind saturated with thoughts of gratitude will find blessings in the most mundane details, fostering contentment and generosity. The thought, "I am a victim," will seek out and magnify every injustice, creating a reality of powerlessness. The thought, "I am a servant of Allah endowed with strength," will seek out and capitalize on opportunities for agency and growth, creating a reality of empowerment. You are, in a very real sense, the curator of your own perceptual universe. The Quran alludes to this when it states that Allah does not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves. The primary change that must occur is not external but internal, a transformation of the thoughts and beliefs that govern their perception and their actions. This is where the concept of tawakkul or reliance upon Allah becomes not a passive surrender, but the ultimate act of cognitive reframing. When faced with a daunting challenge, the natural, untrained mind might scream, "This is impossible. I am going to fail." This thought triggers a cascade of stress hormones, clouds judgment, and leads to either frantic, unproductive action or paralyzing inaction. The mind grounded in tawakkul however, processes the same challenge through a different filter. It says, "This is a test from my Lord. He has brought me to it, and He will see me through it. I will strive to the best of my ability, and I place my ultimate trust in Him." This single shift in thought transforms the entire experience. The challenge is no longer a terrifying threat. It becomes a spiritual ordeal, an opportunity to draw closer to Allah through effort and trust. The anxiety is replaced by a solemn resolve. The energy that was being consumed by fear is now channeled into focused, purposeful action. The reality of the situation has been fundamentally altered by the thought applied to it. Therefore, the command to control your mind is essentially a command to take responsibility for the reality you are creating for yourself moment by moment. It is the most profound form of stewardship, for if you cannot steward your own inner world, you cannot hope to effectively steward anything in the outer world. Every time you intercept a negative thought and replace it with a God, conscious one, you are not just engaging in positive thinking, you are performing an act of worship. You are aligning your internal narrative with the ultimate reality of Tawhid that there is no power nor strength except with Allah. You are affirming that your Lord is merciful, that His plan is wise, and that your ultimate success is not dependent on the fleeting outcomes of this world, but on the state of your heart and mind in relation to Him. When you consistently do this, you begin to inhabit a different world than the one inhabited by the slave of his own whims and fears. You live in a world infused with divine meaning, where tests become gifts and obstacles become stepping stones. Your thoughts, once your tyrant, become your most disciplined soldiers, building for you a reality of peace, purpose, and proximity to the divine, which is in the end the only true success that exists. The instruction to guard our mental gates is a call to a state of profound vigilance in an age of unprecedented psychological invasion. We must understand that our mind is not an impenetrable fortress. It is a place of constant ingress and egress, with portals through which information, ideas, and energies flow ceaselessly. These portals are our senses, our eyes that see, our ears that hear, and even the company we keep, which shapes our conversations and internal dialogues. The principle is as true and as practical as it is spiritual. What you allow through these gates will take up residence within you. It will furnish the rooms of your consciousness, decorate the walls of your perception, and eventually it will begin to speak with your own voice. If you permit garbage to enter, your inner world will become a landfill, a toxic dump where the air is thick with the fumes of anxiety, cynicism, and despair. The fruits of such a mind cannot be anything but rotten actions driven by fear, relationships tainted by suspicion, and a life viewed through a lens of distortion and gloom. Consider the primary gate in our modern era, the screen. Through it, we voluntarily invite a torrent of curated perfection, sensationalized violence, manipulative advertising, and trivial gossip into the most sacred space we possess. We do not merely observe this content, we digest it. It becomes part of our mental and emotional substance. When you spend an hour scrolling through images of lavish lifestyles, your own blessings, which were a source of gratitude moments before, can suddenly feel inadequate. The mind, having consumed this content, begins to construct a new, oppressive reality, one of comparison and lack. When you immerse yourself in the 24-hour news cycle, a world dominated by conflict, corruption, and catastrophe, your mind, designed to protect you, goes into a state of high alert. It internalizes that chaos, and you begin to move through your actual physical world, which may be safe and quiet, with a heart pounding with a low-grade, pervasive dread that you cannot quite locate. This is not peace. This is the direct consequence of failing to stand guard at the gate. The company we keep is another critical portal. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, used the analogy of the scent of a blacksmith and a perfume seller. You will inevitably carry a trace of them with you. This is a law of human influence. When you surround yourself with people whose primary language is complaint, their negativity becomes a dialect you unconsciously learn to speak. When you befriend those who are cynical and who mock righteousness, their skepticism erodes the foundations of your own faith. Their words enter your ears and become seeds of doubt in your heart. Conversely, sitting in the company of the righteous, of those who remember Allah and speak of good things, is like allowing a gentle, purifying breeze to flow through your mind. Their tranquility becomes contagious. Their positive assumptions about life and their trust in Allah begin to recalibrate your own internal compass. They are not just friends, they are fellow guardsmen at the gate, helping you to spot and repel the incursions of negativity. This duty of guarding the gates is known in Islamic spirituality as *muraqaba*, a state of constant awareness that Allah is watching you. It is the highest form of consciousness. When you cultivate this, you begin to evaluate every potential input not just by the standard of is this interesting or is this entertaining. but by the far more critical question, is this beneficial for my soul? Will this bring me closer to my Creator, or will it pull me away? This transforms the act of consumption into an act of worship. Choosing to turn off a show that promotes immorality becomes an act of obedience. Selecting to listen to a Quranic recitation or an enlightening lecture during your commute becomes an act of nurturing your spirit. Deciding to avoid a backbiting conversation becomes an act of defending your heart from spiritual poison. This is active, not passive, faith. It is the practical application of the Quranic command to enjoin what is good and forbid what is evil, starting within the miniature kingdom of your own self. The ultimate goal of this vigilance is to create an inner sanctuary of peace, a garden where the flowers of faith, gratitude, and contentment can bloom. This garden requires protection. Weeds will naturally find their way in a distracting billboard, an overheard negative comment, an unexpected trial. The guarded mind does not panic at this. It has a system. It has the tools of ***, the remembrance of Allah, to act as a gentle, constant weeding process, uprooting negative thoughts before they can take hold. It understands that perfection is not possible, but conscientious stewardship is. By meticulously controlling what enters, you are not building a prison for your mind. You are liberating it from the tyranny of every passing whim and every external manipulation. You are declaring that your inner world is a sacred mosque, a place dedicated to the worship of the divine, and not a public thoroughfare for every thought, image, and idea to trample through. In doing so, you reclaim your sovereignty. You ensure that the throne of your heart is occupied only by the remembrance of Allah, and from that seat of authority, every thought, word, and deed that emanates from you is one that is considered pure and oriented toward the ultimate success of His pleasure